You
Yep.
can also
Hey.
make. Okay.
Okay. Still getting used to we changed systems 2 weeks ago and then again the last week, so. Okay. I just stand by. I'm getting communication from Dick Palmer. He was, he thought he was supposed to physically be at the town office building tonight, so we may end up having to table him till next week. I'm waiting for him to answer back what he wants to do. Okay, this is Chairman Mike McCoo calling to order the February 11th special budget meeting of the Wellington Board of Finance at 7 p.m. First order of business is the seating of alternate. Stephanie Summers had communicated with me that she would not be available tonight, and she asked me to have Lisa Wolf seated in her place. So I'll make a motion to seat Lisa Wolf for Steph Summers. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Christina. Marissa, can you do a vote, please?
Yep. Christina,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. And I see Matt is joining us, so Matt, are you able to hear me? Matt Clark, can you hear me? I see you just unmuted. Can you hear me, Matt? I can see you, Matt. Can you hear me? All right, I was just, before we went to the next business, I was hoping to get in. Okay, so let's move on for the moment to approval of minutes. We have minutes, hang on, let me get my dates correct here. We have minutes from the 4th, correct?
yes.
Yes, so February 4th, special budget meeting. I did review those minutes. I didn't find anything myself that needed correction. So for the sake of discussion, I move that we accept the minutes of the February 4th special budget meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Matt Clark, do you have your audio up?
Just wrote a note at the bottom there. He's having
Oh.
technical difficulties.
Okay, yeah, I'm managing the waiting room at the same time too, and it takes the same spot on the screen, so.
Mike, if you want to make me a co-host, I can manage the waiting room so you don't have to do that.
Sure. Sure, if I can do that, I'll do that. Hang on. And let's see. Okay, Marissa, I've made you a co-host.
Great.
Apologies to everyone out there waiting for us to get moving. We're wrestling with technology here. I think Chief Snyder's wrestling with technology also. He's coming in on 3 different devices and none of them will admit. So.
It's weird. That never happened to me before, and I don't know why I did this time. There's something weird about this call.
Yeah.
And I can see my name on there from my other device still, but I shut it off. So I don't know. It's a weird call.
Okay, well, then I'll encourage everyone to have patience. I just got a message back from Chief Palmer and Fire Marshal Palmer. And it looks like he is asking if we can put him on, if we could table him till next week. So we'll deal with that when we get to the point. He's gonna get his budget to Donna. Okay. All right, moving on here. We were on the minutes. Does anyone else from the board have comments, additions, or corrections for the minutes of February 4th? No? All right, Marissa, can you call the vote?
Jeff,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes,
Lisa,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and Matt.
I guess we still don't have Matt on board.
Okay.
Okay, next item, present to speak. If any of you, public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. So if any of you who has video capability speak during present to speak, please wave your hand and be patient. We have a lot of people on tonight. Okay, anyone who is not using a camera but would like to speak, please unmute and call out your name. Okay, let's move on. New business, item 1, budget discussion, emergency services. Our first one is 0231 Fire Marshal. I move that we table it to our next meeting next Thursday to allow Fire Marshal Palmer to attend.
Second.
Any discussion? Can we take a vote, please?
Jeff,
Yes.
Christina,
yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Matt, or do we have audio on you yet? No. Okay.
It's not. Okay. B, fire departments. Since the Willington one also has ambulance, let's do Willington Hill first. I'm hoping Chief Snyder has made it in here somewhere. Chief Snyder, if you're on, can you unmute and just let us know you're here? I see him a couple places on the screen. Oh, it says he's connecting. Now he's connecting on 2 devices. Chief Snyder, can you hear us? All right, well, we may need to move on here. Erica, do you know if anything is done differently about the technology tonight? We've had
Nothing. I had no problem. I went out on my own and came in a couple times.
right.
Didn't have any
I came
issues.
on fine too.
Yeah.
Still do. We have Christina in 2 places, and we have Tom Snyder in a couple different places, but he doesn't seem to have audio.
It looks like one has video and no audio. So if you open the participants tab, you can see if they have audio or video.
Right.
So whatever device he's on does not appear to have an audio source.
All right. Chief Moore, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Let's see. So let me just pull the order of my papers here. I apologize. I had them stacked in order there. Okay. Which budget would you like to do first? Fire department or ambulance payroll, since it's all your. You're muted right now, Alex.
Sorry, your choice. I don't care either one.
All right, well, let's see. I've got fire department on top of ambulance payroll, so let's start with that.
All right.
Mike, to interrupt for a moment, this is Stuart. I'm on duty at the firehouse and we have an ambulance call.
Okay,
Feel free to review the budget and maybe we'll be back quickly. I don't know.
okay. It's gonna be a weird night, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, Chief Moore. I think you can-
Okay. Did everyone receive our budget letter in the budget graph showing the increase or where our budget has been over the last, since 2007?
Yeah, so what I got it and distributed it immediately to all the board members.
Okay. Thank you. So we've been since 2007, we really haven't had much of an increase. This year we did have to come in with an increase. We've seen over the last year a lot of issues in maintenance on apparatus with the stations. So I'm just going to go through the highlights of the increases, if that's okay.
Sure.
Unless you want to just go, yeah. All right. Building maintenance for station 13 and station 213, there is an increase. We have some doors at the main station that have to be replaced. Those that were on the CIP committee and saw the metal doors on the outside of the building, the bottoms are actually rotting off. So those need to be replaced. The south station has 3 broken windows that need to be replaced. Plus there's been a increase in how much we're using the south station because of COVID. So we've noticed a lot more things that need to be done down at that station, which has also increased the electricity down there, phone and internet bills as well. Those are the top 3 increases. And then the bottom line is the heat and propane because of an increase at the south station. Excuse me. Under the second section for insurance, there is an increase. We did see a decrease about the same amount 2 years ago. So it's pretty much gone back to where it was before. We did shop it around 2 years ago, got it lowered to the $1,500, and it's slowly just creeped back up that $1,500 bucks. Administrative miscellaneous, we did have to increase that as well. There's still some question as to where we have to switch new programs for our firehouse software. We're not sure which direction we're going. That's going to be for us, Wellington Hill, and the fire marshal. Prices are all over the place. Excuse me. We have to do that by January 1, I believe, of next year. This also includes some new initiatives of trying to get technology into the fire trucks to be able to have mapping going to calls. People in the trucks are going to be able to see who's responding, stuff like that. Training, we did have an increase in our training budget. One good thing for Wellington One over the last 12 months is we've had a large influx of new volunteer members. And we've had a large influx of people wanting to go out and do training. We've had 4 or 5 people take firefighter 1, firefighter 2, fire instructor 2 this year. And we just had a 6th person just starting this weekend doing fire 2 again, or a new fire 2 class. On top of our normal EMT medical training that they have to do every year. So there is an increase to the training budget. And then the rest of the larger increases are all because of apparatus maintenance. The newest truck, the 2017 Spartan, comes off warranty this year. So there is a little bit of an increase for maintenance on that truck. The rest of them we've noticed, especially the ambulance, we've had a large amount of repairs over the last 12 months, especially on the ambulance.
The mileage is high on the ambulance, right?
Correct. I think it's one ballpark 120.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't think that's high, but for an ambulance around here, that is high. And a lot of the stuff, unfortunately, that is breaking is very expensive stuff. 2 weeks ago, we had the main screen in the center console broke, which causes all the electronics to do whatever they wanted. Driving down the road, the lights just turned on. That was a $5,000 bill just for a computer. Protective clothing, because of the new members, we are going through gear quicker. And those that are taking the fire classes, because of what the requirements are within FPA and OSHA, we do have to get them newer gear and make sure that their gear is compliant. So we either get a seasoned firefighter a new set of gear to hand theirs down, but it has to be compliant gear. So those are the really just a very broad overview of the increases. So there is about a 17.60% increase, or $21,450 to the fire budget.
Okay. Just a couple of questions on the fire budget, Chief.
Yep.
Back to the bar graph that you pointed out.
Yep.
I just want to revisit that for a minute. I'm not sure, and I'm no whiz at making bar graphs and stuff, so
Yep.
please don't anyone take it as an insult. But if you look at the first column, 2007,
Yep.
it appears to be about 3/4 of the way between 100 and 120,000.
Yep.
Which would make me think something around the 115 range, but the
I think
budget
it was
year was
114.
actually,
I think it was 114, 115.
so the budget that year, according to the town budget information, was 107.9.
Okay.
So that bar graph is close, but not completely.
I can
If
pull it up.
it's actually 32% growth between that year and what you're requesting. Now, of course, that's not, a lot of that is recent because you've held, the last couple of years, you held the same budget. But I just want to point out the bar graph is, that doesn't look like 32% growth there.
Okay. I have to look at it. I don't have the number in front of me. I just have the graph as well.
Yeah, okay. Let's see, I had, let's see.
To what we have in our figure for 2007 was 114.9.
Okay, maybe there's a difference between fiscal 2007 versus 2007 calendar or something like that. Maybe it was the year previous was 107.9.
Okay, yeah, because we had 114.9 and then, yeah.
Okay, all right. So okay, so over that 15-year period, there's 32% growth in the fire budget, and there's 182% growth in the ambulance payroll, which we can come to when you do ambulance payroll.
Yep.
Also, there's some questions have come up on the CIP field trip when we were on January 23rd, when we were at your firehouse. You had shared with the CIP committee that the SUV that you were driving is, in your terms, is assigned to you, I guess.
It is a fire department vehicle, yes. Fire
Okay.
department pays that off of my payroll.
Okay, can you explain? Yeah, you said that day. What does that mean?
A take-home vehicle for most state employees, you have to put in a portion, you have to pay a fee as if it's a 24-hour vehicle, 24/7 vehicle. That fee that comes off my payroll goes directly into the account at the firehouse as a take-home vehicle. That's what pays for that vehicle.
So So what so you work at the firehouse part-time. What you're saying is the cost of paying for that vehicle is reduced from your payroll? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so
I never see the
taxpayers-
money. I'm sorry.
What's that?
I
ahead.
don't see the money that comes off of, yeah,
So the taxpayers are not paying for that vehicle?
not one dime. Nope,
Okay, not for fuel, for service, anything?
nope. And they haven't since we bought the Expedition.
Okay, and that's the same. Now, what about insurance? If it's a department vehicle, it's on department insurance, right?
It is, but we pay, that bill comes separate for that vehicle.
Okay, okay,
Because we did not want that to go towards the taxpayers.
understood. Okay, well, that's what our job is here. So that's
That was-
a good answer for us to work with here. And that is you said that is your take-home vehicle, so you can use that
Correct.
to go to your other full-time job or whatever.
Correct, but there's a set of guidelines that I have to follow.
Understood. Okay. Okay, so,
It's no different than Public Works taking their vehicle home, stuff like that.
yeah, no, I understand. Yes, I agree. And as a matter of fact, I think that as someone who used to have a take-home vehicle for my other job, I understand some of the complexities of it. And so the fact
It's
that
not all it's cracked up to be. what you need.
what's that?
It's not all is cracked up to be to have a take-home car, but it is, with having the paid
Yeah,
staff and having to care as much as I do. Yes,
Yes. Well, the important thing for us here tonight was to understand what the taxpayers' involvement was in it. And I think you've answered those questions, so thank you for that. Okay, so those were my only questions on fire department budget. Other board members, do you have questions on the fire department budget?
Yes, Mike.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, Alex, the line items I'm looking at right now are the telephone, station 213, a 500%. Is it? Did
because
they,
there was no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There was no cable or internet in that station. Because of COVID, we've been using that station a lot more, and needed to have internet and such down there.
all right, so even though it says telephone, it means cable and internet.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right. That was one question. The second question was under protective clothing purchase.
Yep.
There was a issue previous with CIP where CIP was providing some of that. Is this a method of not getting there?
No,
So that you can.
CIP, we
avoid
did,
that?
CIP, we did get 19,000, which that was, they should have, actually, the bill for that should be in now. That was off of this year's current CIP plan, along with the 8,600 that we have budgeted will be spent, or 8,500 that's budgeted for this year will be spent on protective clothing this year. We have enough people that it needs to get gear replaced that's gonna get spent. We did the first amount at 19,000. The fear was spending it all at once was our budget's really tight right now because of all the vehicle maintenance.
Okay. And the last question I have, and I don't see it on here, but I think I remember seeing it someplace else, was there used to be money coming in from the tower. And on one of the budgets we saw that was zeroed out. And I was wondering what the deal was.
That's on
with
the
that.
ambulance. That's on the ambulance side.
Okay, that's why I don't see it here.
Yep.
Okay, other board questions for Chief Moore on the fire department budget? Okay, Chief, if you want to move on to the ambulance payroll budget. So
Mike, I think Matt has a question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Matt.
So Chief Moore, if you had to prioritize the increases across many of the lines in your budget, are there any that you would prioritize as extremely important, must be done this year? And other ones that you would say are important, but may possibly be able to wait for another year?
In all honesty, training, personal protective clothing, stuff like that is a must. The vehicle repairs, if that doesn't get increased, the Board of Finance has just got to know that we're going to have to come back.
Okay.
and that's where we're at this year, is we're probably gonna have to come back because we're not gonna make the end of the year with the way the repairs have been.
Okay.
That's why we're trying to budget it out as far as we can.
Oh. Yeah. Mike, I have one more question. I'm sorry,
Peter,
Chief. Moore.
go ahead.
The software, that, the cost in your budget, will that cover the cost of the software for the fire, the Wellington Hill Fire Department as well?
No, it's our
No.
portion.
All right, so you're both buying your own sets of software, but we're gonna be, no?
No, we will have the same, excuse me, we will be on the same platform,
Mm-hmm,
sharing the same software. It's just our portion of the bill.
okay,
Currently, we use the exact same software. We both can see each other's, and the fire marshal can see it. It's just split 3 ways.
all right, thank you.
Peter, if you remember, that was discussed in past years, and there was a desire from this board that the fire departments should be working together on that. They-
Yes, that's why I brought it up, was because
Yeah.
I couldn't remember how the cost was split. I
Yeah.
was happy to hear that we're all on the same platform now.
Yes, yeah. Matt Clark,
Yeah,
question?
are there any, Chief Moore, are there any lines here that we can expect to go decrease next year? I mean, we have maintenance on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vehicles, 5 vehicles. And they're going up anywhere from a third to a quarter to 50%. Is there anything we can expect next year that we would be able to see a decrease in?
My honest answer, unless we replace the ambulance, no.
I'm not talking about the ambulance, I'm talking about the fire.
Correct. The ambulance repair budget is in here, is in the fire budget.
Okay,
That is slated to be replaced. Mike, help me out here, 22, 23?
2, I think it's 2 years out right now.
So at this point, no. That's the only vehicle in our plan right now that's up for replacement. But we're trying to hold off replacing it as long as we can to try to build Fund 17 up before we make another purchase off of it.
okay, thanks.
Chief, just, okay, I see it here. So the line that says vehicle maintenance R513, that's
Yeah.
terminology of Rescue 513. At first, I
Correct.
ambulance, but that's the old terminology. So for the reading the budget who are not fire people, the line that is 435-05, vehicle maintenance R513, that's the ambulance. Okay, anything else on the fire budget before we move to the ambulance payroll? Okay, Chief, why don't you go to ambulance payroll budget?
All right, ambulance payroll. This one's pretty straightforward. This is, the increases that we have are either because of the labor contract that's in place, or just to make the minimum wage increase that's being done by the state. So there is a 4.89% increase, but that covers the contractual increases through the full-time employees. The part-time employees are getting a matching increase just to try to get them above minimum wage. We still are the lowest paid fire department anywhere around us. And then just the minimum wage increases. Our health insurance actually was, this is one of the lowest increases we've seen on health insurance in years. Anybody that's been on the board for a while and remember some of the increases that came before.
Okay, Chief, I've got a couple of questions again on your form here and the numbers. If I draw your attention to the total expense line, it says 591,035.
Yep.
Which drives your increase of 4.89%.
Yep.
Then move down to the total revenue. It's showing 563,484, which is out of balance.
I'm sorry, where are you?
So if you move down to the total revenue line at the bottom.
Yep.
Go over to the right, it says 563,484. So
Mine says, the
the
Or are those-
$27,000 increase didn't get carried down.
Okay, so usually you guys do the revenue portion of this. We
Okay,
just plug numbers into it. Is your budget request blank in revenue?
Yeah.
That would be why.
Yeah.
That's why that bottom total
okay,
revenue.
the budget request column is blank. Okay. Okay, I understand.
Usually you guys plug those numbers in. I did send Donna a copy last week with those numbers plugged in. If we did the same as we did this year, it would be 550, 535 from general,
Yep,
10,000 out of Fund 17, 500 in interest, and 30 out of the tower lease that we continually give.
okay. So then that would create the balance of,
That would make the 591,035.
yep, and so then we'd show a 4.89% increase on both sides to balance it out. Okay. Good. Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that we actually managed that number. I must have missed that. I must have missed.
That's what I've always been told.
Okay. All right. So I have a couple questions on ambulance payroll. All right, that was one of them there. Okay, so looking at the trending on the ambulance payroll, because your bar graph got me thinking about where has ambulance payroll gone over that same period of time.
Okay.
And it's so in the last 10 years, ambulance payroll has increased 108%. So it's essentially doubled. And if you go over the last 17 years, which is the period of your bar graph plus right up to this request that you're submitting tonight.
Yep.
17 years, the ambulance payroll has increased 253% or 3.5 times.
Okay.
Now, I know there were changes during that time period in how staffing is done, how hours are covered.
Yep.
Could you sort of give us a quick overview of why we have 3 times the budget from what was 167 a year up to what is now 591 a year?
So in the last, I can only speak for the last 10 years that I know of. In the last 10 years, we've doubled our staffing or man hours. We went from having just people on during the day, which originally back when it was started was, I think, one person. When all of this started was one person Monday through Friday, I think 8 to 4, 9 to 5, something like that. Now there's 2 people on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In the last 10 years, they've gone to a labor contract. They're now IAF unionized workers. That did drive up the contract or the cost when they did unionize, just because of having to have a solid contract. And they weren't getting increases before, at least regular increases. And that's what's gotten us to where we are now, is doubling the amount of man hours because the lack of volunteers. And originally was, because of the ambulance and not having people to get that ambulance out, especially at night.
Right. So having been involved all the way back in those days, back when you're talking about the one person, I do remember when I was a junior, there was one person and then became 2 Monday through Friday.
Yep.
The years, as I remember it, those 2 Monday through Friday positions were the 2 full-time positions.
Correct.
And then over the years, the department has come to this board saying we need to increase to cover because it's getting harder to cover calls at night, especially in the overnight hours, because people don't want to volunteer at 5 a.m. and then be involved in 2 hours worth of ambulance call and then miss going to work.
Correct.
That was when the overnights were created. And the last that I remember, and of course I haven't attended every meeting, but the last that I remember was your 2 full-timers were Monday through Friday people. And then you covered weekends and evenings with part-timers and per diems. And then you had a bunking rate for people who were on the overnight because they were expected to do less.
So currently there is 4 full-time employees.
That was going to be my question. You mentioned the other day in the CIP tour that you have 4 full-time employees. What kind of schedule do they work?
They work a 36-72, and then it's a 36-hour shift and then 72 off, 24 on, 60 off. Sorry, I have it backwards. 36 on, 60 off, 24 on, 72 off.
Okay. So now, so basically we're paying, So you've gone from 2 full-timers to 4 full-timers. So that's double the full-timer cost, double the benefits cost.
Correct.
And they are actually now working, because of that schedule, they work in the overnights also. So we're no longer getting the bunking rate.
The one person at night from 5 PM to 5 AM is the bunking rate. That's what minimum, that is what the minimum wage is.
Okay, so there's one regular full-timer and their other person is a part-timer.
Correct. Yeah, it's a stipend position.
Yep,
That's what that 30,000 from the tower.
right. Okay,
towards.
okay, so hang on, okay. So that schedule, so what was the reason for moving to that kind of a schedule where you have the full-timers working and what ended up needing to double up on full-timers? You have 4 instead of 2 now.
Correct. It was because of the lack of volunteers to come out at night and having to put staffing on at night.
So you couldn't get the per diem or part-time.
Not at the rate that we could pay.
Okay. So this explains probably a lot of this salary increase because it's a significant increase.
And most of that was negotiated through the contract.
So who does the negotiating? The Board of Finance is obviously not involved in that. Who
Fire department.
negotiates? Who's the boss versus who's the employee?
It's considered, the people that negotiate is the fire chief, the president, and typically the vice president.
Okay, and so you as fire chief, you're one of the management representatives,
Correct.
but you're also a paid part-time.
Right, but not under the contract.
Okay,
I am not under the contract.
okay, but all the people on both sides of the table are all from the same organization. They're all members of Willington Fire Department number 1 in some way.
Correct. When it was originally negotiated, we did have a member of the Board of Selectmen that sat on the committee, but there was no, because of the way the state statute's written, the fire department has jurisdiction over the contract, the negotiating of the contract.
So it's all you, basically both sides of the table are essentially all your people,
Correct.
one way or another.
Well, yeah,
Okay, well, that
What year?
job if you can get it, I guess.
I
Is
have a
it-
question.
Is it a
Chris.
3-year contract or is it a 2?
4-year contract.
4. And what year are we in right now?
2.
And what are the increases in years 3 and 4?
I think it was 10% over 4 years is what was negotiated.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So if the state jurisdiction, so can you explain to me, you have jurisdiction over the contract. Did it occur to you, you were the chief at the time, correct?
Of when?
When this all came into practice?
I
Who
not.
was the chief at the time?
Tyler.
Tyler.
And Tyler's gone?
He's still a member on our board, but he's no longer the fire chief.
So did he go to the town? Is there history that he went to the town and said, can we afford this before you unionize or before you created a contract? Because you can have jurisdiction over a contract, but it's not funded by you. So did you ask anybody? You meaning the fire department?
So
Or did you just take liberties to put a contract into practice?
there was no liberties put into, is Ron on here at all? Ron Gannick, who's our president, if he can unmute by chance.
I see Trevor's,
It's Denise's iPad.
oh, okay, I do see that.
I don't know if he's able to.
What year was that too? What year did that contract get put into practice?
It was like 2010 or 11.
Yeah, 2009, 2010.
I
was
see
on
the,
the board
It was
then.
right when I first started was when it like,
I was there.
and it
So
took
I
a-
was
like
on
a
the
year.
board, but I don't remember that it was, I don't remember that it was a 4-person contract.
okay,
This is Ron Gantic, I'm on
It was
now.
3 at the time.
there you go. Ron is on, Ron,
Okay,
go ahead.
I'm the president. This contract was negotiated probably 2009, 2010. The town was involved with it. Christina was the first selectman. We had the town's attorney involved, we had our attorney involved. So this was done above board. We did not take any liberties. We wanted to make sure that there was not going to be anything to be deemed underhanded to our advantage. The volunteering is fallen off sharply in the ambulance is why we have the paid staff in order to cover all the shifts and cover compensated time off, vacation, sick, personal, holidays. You know, we needed to have the additional staff. We could not just cover it with part-time per diem people. We tried it. It didn't work. We needed to have a dedicated staff. Because that ambulance runs constantly. We're doing what approximately 800 ambulance calls a year. And it's generating income that goes to Fund 17. It needs to get out and the people need to be protected in the town. So our guys went for many years without getting raises. It was just a settlement agreement, so to speak. But then we got into, there was concerns that people were going to be going after their jobs. So they decided to unionize. The first union they had for several years, that kind of fell apart. And then they went to the IAFF. The guys that work there are residents of the town, and they are not looking to take advantage of the townspeople and the taxpayers and ask for exorbitant raises. We take a look at the contract for public works and the town hall employees and try to stay in line with the increases that they're getting.
So all four full-timers are Willington residents and taxpayers?
Not at this point. We've got 2 of them that are, and 2 now.
They were, and then one moved out of town, and then one left.
Was there any preference to try to find a full-timer that lived in town?
Yes. When a position opens up in the fire department full-time, the volunteers in both departments have first right of refusal for the job. So if they don't apply for it, then we go to the outside. We go to the town and county, the town county departments and advertise out that way through the dispatch center.
And they,
just I don't mean to
have-
cut you off, just
go
a
ahead.
note, even our full-time staff are the lowest full-time employees in all of Talon County for firemen.
lowest paid, are they also the greenest?
No, they are not. Every one of our full-time personnel have at least 20 years of
Wow.
firefighting history.
Well, you also have to know the town you're working in and
Absolutely.
what it can sustain. I mean, I think, I've always been a huge proponent of the fire department in all town positions. I think it's vital, and I understand that we're part of the, we are close to the highway and there's a lot of activity going on there. The only concern now is it feels like, we're Willington with 1,000 homes and a highway, I get. And, we're not Hartford and we're not Bridgeport. So for me, the opportunity for you all to care for people and get the reimbursement back, the appropriate reimbursement, made sense long ago. I mean, it was a real service that we were offering, but now it feels a little bit like a business that the taxpayers have paid for, and usually a business should be, you guys are public service, so it just feels a little weird. It feels like, I'm for I'm for the fire department of the Wellington Fire Department, collectively, all of you, One, Hill, everybody, engaging in the activities that you guys have engaged in. I mean, everybody is terrific, in my opinion. But it just feels like we're larger than the town, like the fire department has grown to be a viable business, and it feels weird. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. Like, you don't want to have the taxpayers building the fire department business if it's public. Do you know what I mean? Excuse me, if it's beyond our town. Does that make sense? It feels like we're doing more service than our town, and it's being paid for by the Wellington tax dollars. So are we recouping that back? Does that make sense?
Lisa, are you asking about union?
There's a mutual aid fire service agreement with.
You know, it's really
all the
hard to
surrounding
hear you.
towns.
I don't know if you know, like, it's really hard to hear you.
There's a mutual aid fire service agreement, emergency services agreement with all the surrounding towns. And we all help each other out because nobody has enough equipment and manpower to do everything.
Right,
So,
I get that.
yes, we do go out of town, the ambulance goes out of town. We do bill those patients that we pick up. So we're not supporting the other towns. And by the same token, when our ambulance is out of service, they come and cover us. So, and they also get the bill for that patient. So when we're out of service, that's not good. But, you know,
So
we try-
when our ambulance, just so I understand, when our ambulance is down and another town gets called to do the call, we don't pay, we're not charged by that town. The town only recoups the
Billing,
reimbursement.
correct.
How often is our ambulance down?
Lately, it's been down a little, quite a bit, but we've been borrowing trucks from other services so that we're not down.
Okay,
So, Lisa, I think maybe one of the differences here, one of the things we've talked about is the difference, the mutual aid is what we're talking about right now, which is sort of a give and take. But then there's also the situation with union, which Chief Moore and I talked about a little bit in budget season last year. And there was discussion about talking with the town of Union because the arrangement with Union is different. And Chief Moore, maybe you could explain what the arrangement with Union is, because that's not mutual aid.
That is not. Wellington, we actually hold the PSA or primary service area for the town of Union for ambulance. That was started to generate more revenue back to us. So we do go to every 911 call for an ambulance in the town of in the town of Union as well. But their call volume is drastically lower than it is in Wellington. I think we see 60, 70 calls, transport calls out of there, maybe.
and then do you go to Day Kimball?
Maybe
With their-
once a year.
Where?
Maybe once a year. It's usually we go to all the same hospitals that we go to, Johnson, Rockville.
Oh,
We take
okay.
patients, we take patients from Wellington to Day Kimball.
Yeah, I believe it.
So Chief, on the union thing, because, you know, you and I talked about this some last year, and it has been a concern of mine, particularly because as we've talked about, ambulance revenue cannot, or seems like it cannot ever grow to the point of covering the cost of the ambulance, which was something we're all aware of. So.
Which
right-
into what I've been told of the history was not the goal of Fund 17. The
Oh,
goal
no,
of Fund 17
yes,
was
I
not
understand that.
cover-
Way back in the
Like-
early days, the revenue was about equal to the cost of the staffing, but that was way back. And that's why things were changed. Fund 17 came in. We're all aware that the billing just can't cover the cost.
Yep.
So what that means is the taxpayers cover the difference. And using the budget information that you've submitted, and I did not have, for this calculation, I didn't have a breakdown of what fuel the ambulance uses and stuff, but just in rough numbers, the budget information you provided indicates that, rough speaking, the total cost of running the ambulance for a year is $657,000. That's the salaries, that's the payment on the lease, that's, you know, assuming it's a lease year. Most, of course, there aren't a lot of gaps in lease years because you've worn out a rig in that time. And then the revenue that was shown in the budget, in the CIP budget anyway, which I'm sure is low purposely because you don't know what each year will be. The revenue showing in the CIP budget was 145, and then you're showing 30 from the tower leases. So again, rough calculations, the net cost to the taxpayers for the ambulance is $482,000 a year, or 73% of the cost of the ambulance service is being paid for by the taxpayers. And the other revenue sources are covering 27%. Again, keep in mind, those are rough numbers that I calculated. Don't count on them.
Okay.
Write them down in stone. So if the taxpayers are covering 73%, which we understand is the cost of doing business, of providing the service, why isn't it reasonable that we ask the taxpayers of the town of Union to cover some of that?
Right.
Because right now, the taxpayers of the town of Willington are providing that extra 73% of Union's cost. You know what I'm saying? The town of Union doesn't pay anything. We get the ambulance billing back, but if the ambulance billing is only covering 27%, then that other 73% for those 60 or 70 calls is something that maybe Union should be paying. So the taxpayers of Willington are not subsidizing Union's EMS.
Or subsidizing a business that is not self-sustaining. You get it?
That's another way of saying it, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm not to you. I'm not saying get it to you, Mike. I'm saying get it to Chief Moore. You know, it's like, it's just because Union gets a terrific benefit by not having to buy an ambulance and not having to have trained personnel and not having to educate that personnel and not having to supply uniforms, and you get it.
I do, but at the same time, we would lose that revenue as well.
But your ambulance would last longer, you'd spend less on fuel,
No, we're not looking for you to lose revenue. We're looking
Right.
to negotiate with Union to bring the value that you deliver to get the fees that for the services you deliver.
Okay.
It's not being covered by the reimbursement. Everybody knows that insurance companies pay only what they must, you know, they're never generous, right?
Oh, we find it every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you sell that value?
I guess that comes down to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance if they want to negotiate into a contract with the town of Union.
Good answer.
you're probably right.
Are you in support of that? Like, would the fire department be in support of that, or?
I would have to take that to the board. That's not, I can't answer that on my own. I'm not.
And do you also have to take it to the union, right? Or
For
no?
what? To
The union
negotiate
doesn't have
contract?
to be involved. Okay, good. All right.
So, other board members, discussion on this particular topic right here?
Mike, I did send you, because I don't think you got it the last time, was the state statute from the, from when we started the negotiations. That I emailed that over to you.
Oh, during this meeting?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
just because I wanted it before I forgot.
I've passed my capability to manage screens here.
Yep.
I'll check it. Thank you. All right, other comments on this topic? I think the chief maybe just made a good comment about the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen needing to talk to Union.
There's one problem potentially if we go and ask them to give us an annual amount that they could turn to Stafford Ambulance and they could take their business.
Yes, I suppose that's a concern, but then again,
And
we're
this-
covering a lot of costs for Stafford Ambulance, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it should be a concern at this point. You got some really good talent with Mike and the members of the Board of Finance, I'm an alternate usually, and you have the selectmen, and it's a conversation with union. I don't think anybody should be worried that your revenue stream will go away. I think you offer a terrific service, but it's time they understand the value, and I don't think anybody should be worried about that. Not yet. I mean, I don't think we're not looking to sever that relationship. That would be foolish. But we are looking, I think, I will speak for me. I think what we need to do is ensure that you all get paid for the services you deliver. That's what I think is important. And it doesn't have to be that doesn't have to be a confrontational discussion at all.
Mike?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I the numbers went right past me. The percentage that we get back from the insurance companies compared to the total cost was what, 1/3?
Again, these are rough calculations, but I came up with the net cost to the taxpayers is 73%. And
So
the revenue from the billing and from the cell tower leasing is.
all right, so 1/4, and if you just look at the insurance, it's less than 1/4 because of the cell tower. So even if you, if we asked the town of Union for twice what we're getting from the insurance companies, we're still financing them, and you know, I think that's reasonable. But if you know, the town of Stafford wants to pick up the Union ambulance and have it come out of the Stafford taxpayers' pocket, well, and I know what you're saying, Alex. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I'm just for a point of reference, Ashford contracts for a service, or sorry, not Ashford, the town of Eastford, which is bigger than Union, contract services for an ambulance provider. They only pay around, I think the last time we had looked at it was $50,000 a year.
Yeah, I'm just looking at multiples of what the insurance company is paying us for Union. So if we're running up to Union 60 times a year, then the insurance payout is X. All I'm looking for is 2X. I'm not looking for $100,000. You know, I'm just looking for multiples of what we're already getting from the insurance, not a set fee like AMR is looking for. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think, Mike, I think.
Hang on a second, Lisa. Christine's got her hand up.
Sorry.
No, I just, did you say Eastford only pays $50,000 for their ambulance service?
50, 60,000, somewhere like that. But
And
they
we're
also
paying-
only have,
And we're paying 600 plus lots of,
their call volume is drastically lower than what ours is as well.
okay.
Right, but so that's another conversation, but I also,
You're muted, sorry.
that's okay. I also think what we need to do is figure out what are all the reimbursements based off of Medicare, right?
No.
Medicaid?
Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, private pay.
Right, no, I know, but they all, you bring it down to the, so, you know, it's based off of Medicare, I can tell you that. So then, does anybody know in the fire department what the reimbursement covers? Is it supposed, like, what's reasonable and customary? Anyway, this could be another conversation. That's before you go to Union, but you want to understand, does the insurance company cover the vehicle mileage, the wear and tear, the call?
Every call, we get to bill a certain rate. So every call, and I don't know the exact figure off the top of my head.
But it's not a flat rate. It's based on the acuity of the call, right?
Correct. There's
Yeah.
different fee schedules per call. There's mileage built in, or you charge per mile for transporting, et cetera.
Right. So then, Mike, the problem is that so anyway, I'll stop talking, but I got other things that I want to tell everybody later.
Okay. Well, yeah.
And
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not to throw anything else onto this, but just as a reminder, they're not just there for, running an ambulance. If it's a fire call, it's a house fire or something like that. They're also running a fire truck And 9 times out of 10 is the first truck pulling in that driveway with 2 very experienced personnel anywhere in the town.
Chief, something I will assure you of, as someone who has myself has been a member of both of the departments in town, and as you know, has had an entire career as a firefighter.
Yep.
I have no question and no doubt about the value of everything the departments in town are doing. Just as my job here on this board is to try to figure out how to make the taxpayers get the most service for the least amount of money.
I agree with you, and that's what we try to
And-
do.
Right,
Yes.
but
And so if we have a way of producing a little more recovery for
Yep.
us, we're providing, if there's a fair way, then I think that's what this conversation is about. Christina?
I'm just wondering if we should make a motion to, I guess, direct or ask the Board of Selectmen to work with the fire department to approach Town of Union to try to negotiate something.
Would you include the Board of Finance in that motion?
Oh, yes, and I would include the Board of Finance, yes. I don't know, if that's not a very good motion. but-
I'll second it.
Can you reword, before you second it, Lisa, can you
Oh.
maybe, you want to clean up your wording, Christina?
All right, I make a motion that we, the Board of Finance make a request to the Board of Selectmen to invite the fire department and the Board of Finance to participate in exploring negotiations with the Town of Union.
Just
Yeah.
having a conversation, right?
Okay, can I get a second for Christina's motion,
I second.
Lisa? Discussion on the motion. Board members?
I just think we need to make sure that we have to do the right research before we go to the Town of Union. And I think all of us have to be, we have to just get the facts in front of us and understand, if it's even possible to ask for anything more, because as we were talking, it occurred to me that what Chief Moore just said, that, there's built-in fees into a reimbursement. So that would designate, usually ambulances are told to go to the closest hospital on purpose, right? So if we make a decision to go and help Union and it's outside the purview of what the reimbursement is, I don't know that we have a leg to stand on to talk to Union, but it's still worth the conversation and it's still worth the research.
Other board comments on the motion? All right, Marissa, call a vote, please.
Christina,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Jeff,
Sure.
Peter,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any more on the Fire Department 1 ambulance payroll budget? Okay, thank you for all of that time, Chief Moore.
Thank you.
Chief Snyder, you have audio?
I think so. Do I? Can you hear me?
Yes, you do.
Super,
Welcome.
super, great. Took
Um,
me a while, but I got here.
Okay, so this was item 1B on our agenda. This is Willington Hill Fire Departments. For those of you who have the papers in front of them or on your screen, there is a two-page budget with explaining notes on the bottom. And there was an email I sent around maybe yesterday or today from Chief Snyder with a couple of brief comments about the budget. Chief Snyder, you want to start with hitting up any of your highlights?
Sure, just to basically start off, the number is 135, 300 that we're requesting. Couple of items that are falling into direct result of an increase is across the street, was not really budgeted for prior to this, which I mean 25 Old Farms Road, which we acquired. And then the SUV replacement that I have in capital improvement is a large chunk of this increase. Again, I've requested it for about 3 years now to replace the SUV, and it's going to require some significant maintenance. It's not a lot of maintenance, but the repair bills are in the thousands for like one item transmission. That's thousands of dollars. So again, I'm budgeting for that, for one of those repairs. Next year I'll have to do the same thing if we still have the vehicle. But if that vehicle is replaced and held in the CIP plan, we can certainly reduce service 149 line note 4 that you guys have. We can reduce that back down to about 1,000 as opposed to 5. So the line item would bring our increase to about 2%, 2 to 3% for the year. And again, other than that, I mean, we're including now the property across the street, 25 Old Farms Road, some maintenance and stuff like that, line items. And that's about it.
Chief, as you may have heard, I've been kind of hammering in CIP, particularly in somewhat in Board of Finance, about a lot of things in town being expensive and needing to do good planning. I think we all, a lot of us here on this meeting tonight know of us participating in the efficiency committee, which was supposed to help us with some of that joint planning. If that committee can kind of get kicked back in gear, it's been idle during COVID, but if that can kick back in gear, are you guys willing
I'm
to?
trying.
Peter says he's trying. Are you guys willing to commit to that planning process that would really help us out in these areas on figuring out this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. I've had several conversations with members of this department, and we'd like to see it kicked back off, and we'd like to see, like you mentioned, a plan that can be put together in conjunction with Wellington One and Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to say, okay, this is a plan, we're gonna put it together and stick to it. I know there's been studies and stuff like that, but they have really not been effective and definitive. So yes, we are very interested in getting back into that and coming up with a direction.
Thank you. Other board comments, questions for Chief Snyder on the fire department budget?
Yes, I would very much like to thank Chief Snyder for the notes on all the points in the budget that immediately come to mind with an explanation. And I hope to see that on some other budgets. Thank you.
No problem, Peter. I just thought it would, eliminate some of the back and forth here tonight, and you guys could touch on them, and I think it kind of worked out for both of us.
Other board comments and questions? Okay, Chief Snyder, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 1D on the agenda, 0234 Emergency Management Director Stipend. Stuart, back, which is
I'm back.
and we can hear you. That's good too.
The title of that fund perhaps should change because it's not just the stipend for the emergency management director. I believe 2 years ago, maybe 3, they added in the maintenance costs of the generator at Hall School. But the stipend request it remains unchanged. And I think we kept the generator maintenance at the same amount it was 2 years ago. Not knowing what that maintenance cost is, it appears to go up and down, and something the school handles directly with the generator vendor. But
Stuart, sorry to interrupt you, but I don't have your budget in my stuff. Does anybody else have it? Board members?
Donna had it.
Oh.
She said she received it.
Maybe I missed an email from you, Donna.
Yep.
You're still muted.
I'm gonna look for it right now and I'll send it to you.
Okay, if you find it, maybe we could do a screen share. And I just assumed Stuart was gonna pop it up on the screen when he got here tonight because I hadn't gotten it yet. So
No, I had submitted it. Basically, there's only two line items in that entire budget. The emergency management director stipend for $6,000, which has remained unchanged for 10 years, I'm guessing, something like that. It's expected to get a 50% reimbursement through the, it's federal money administered by the state through the emergency management performance grant. So the net cost of the town is usually $3,000. It's not a guaranteed dollar amount every year. It goes up, goes down with the state, and their fiscal years are very different than the towns. But generally speaking, I put in 6,000, you get 3,000 back from the state, and that costs 3,000 for the emergency manager. The other line item that was placed in there a few years ago, recently, was the maintenance of the hall school generator. I think 2 years ago it was $1,700. So it looks like this year it was about 900. We don't know what it's going to be this coming year. So those are the only two items in that emergency management director stipend category.
Okay, so what is the total? The total budget is 6,900. Is that what you're saying, with a $3,000 hopeful reimbursement?
I'm looking for, my copy of it's on my other computer at home, but I think it was 1,700. He went with the worst case number.
Okay.
It depends, what problems they find. Are they replacing belts? Are they doing a battery? We don't know what the maintenance is each year. So, and I only have a couple years of history with that in terms of what it's going to cost. So correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, but I think we put in the 1,700 and something for the hall school generator maintenance, and then the 6,000 in total for the stipend.
You put in $1,047 for the generator maintenance.
Yep.
So the budget is
I don't have
$7,000.
anything to do with it. The school arranges that through the
Right.
generator guy, but somehow it got parked in my budget a couple years ago.
Yes, I think someone decided because the generator was there for the shelter, then that become an emergency management problem.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right. It's got to go somewhere. So
Yep.
tag them it.
Okay, I do see that Donna forwarded me the email. I will get it out to the board members as soon as this meeting ends. Any questions for Stuart on the emergency management director? At least that one was small enough to describe.
Is that a 0% increase? Is that what we finally came out with? I heard a lot of numbers, but
Yes.
the number I want to hear is 0% increase.
0%, I believe.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's go. Any other questions on that budget from the board? No? All right, next, 0518 emergency preparedness. I also have not seen that. Is that in the email from Donna as well?
No, because there's historically been no budget with it. It's a fund, and the money from the fund came from FEMA reimbursement when we had those multiple storms a few years ago, and when we had to open shelters and things like that, and FEMA reimbursed 75%, which included some volunteer labor, which netted about $4,000 and something of cash, which was set aside for emergencies, so to speak, the expense side of things. During this past fiscal year, I believe a bunch of COVID stuff got charged off to that fund. Again, it's a non-budgeted line item. We haven't put any money into it since FEMA put some money into it. And some of the COVID stuff that was charged off to it was expected to have some reimbursement from FEMA to replenish that fund, at least to some degree. So it's kind of like a savings account for in case of emergency, if we needed to open shelters or house people because of COVID or buy sign, whatever kind of came up in an emergency.
So who's responsible for that fund to make sure the Board of Finance at least sees an accounting of it?
I don't know. I had no request for any paperwork for that fund. Donna, if you want to pipe up on that one, I think it's one we've just let sit for several years, and it hasn't been touched until this year in terms of taking some money out And then I suspect we're still waiting if FEMA's going to put any money back into it. So it's not like an annual budget per se, at least it hasn't been up till now. So I believe right now there's no request for any money to go into it. We're waiting to see what comes back from FEMA. And then, after that all settles out, would we want to put some money? Basically, it's a savings account. Think of it that way for emergencies.
So my only point, Stuart, is to figure out whose area of responsibility it falls under within our budget, so that we make sure it's in the budget and we know where it belongs in the budget, so that when we approve the budget, we've seen it. And particularly if money's moved in and out of it in this fiscal year, that's probably good for us to just sort of be aware of it.
Yep, understood. So as of right now, there's no request for any fund money to go back into that. We're hoping some will come back from FEMA, and it was a trade-off. It was it was money for doing some training with the CERT team when that was active, which they're not active now. There's some other things that could come up with that, but in terms of requests for this fiscal year, there's a zero request in there for right now.
Okay. Does it fall under your purview? Is it your area of budget responsibility?
Nobody's told me that, but I'm guessing so.
Well,
This was a Board of Finance created this back when some money came back in from FEMA, and the idea was floated of, hey, let's hold on to this in case of, that's when we're getting multiple storms and shelter openings and stuff like that. And so somebody, I don't make up funds for the town. It was probably Board of Finance at the time or something like that.
All I'm trying to do is find someone to make sure it's inserted in the budget so that we know, so that we see it.
Yep.
I mean, even if it's Board of Finance responsibility, then we'll work with Donna and we'll make sure it gets inserted in the budget.
Yep. I don't mind talking about it. Just that's been the history of it, and there's really been no ins and outs of it other than the FEMA money went in and some COVID expenses went out.
Okay. Any other board comments, questions on 0518 emergency preparedness? No? Okay. So that concludes new business. Thank you, everyone who participated in, Chief Moore, go ahead.
All right, not that I really want to talk anymore, but the AED budget, was that forwarded to you as well?
I don't think. Who generated
It
that?
went to Donna. Donna said she was going to forward it to you regarding the AEDs. The last 2 years we've budgeted 6,000.
Right, I'm familiar with that. I remember it from previous years. Okay, so here's what we will do. Anything we missed tonight, because we have to do the fire marshal and all that, we'll pick up on another night. That one was pretty non-controversial too, right? That was just continuing the step. That program.
Yep.
What is AD?
The defibrillators. AE.
Oh.
The plan just replace the last of the ones in the schools that we need to for being outdated, and starting with the apparatus in town for both departments.
Okay. We'll backtrack between you, Don, and myself. We'll backtrack and find out where that is. We'll insert it in another night. Let you know ahead of time that it's coming up on another night.
Okay.
See, forwarding me an email right now. Okay, if I missed it in my inbox, I apologize. Okay, so since it was on tonight's agenda, I'd like to make a motion that we table 1A account 0231, I'm sorry, department 0231 fire marshal to a later meeting to be determined. Can I get a second on that?
We
I'll
already,
second that. Did we do that? Yeah.
we did this already.
Did we vote to table it?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Long meeting. I'll withdraw my motion. Oh yeah, I have a note right here that says tabled. Glad I wrote it down. Okay. Correspondence. The only correspondence that board members have not gotten that's come in the last couple of days is we started getting the budgets for the next meeting. And I didn't want to pack that in with the stuff I was sending you this meeting. So tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, I will forward those to you. And so we're back to what?
Any spoiler alerts?
No, I didn't look at them yet.
Oh, okay.
Nope. I had my mind on tonight. Okay, we're back to present to speak. Anyone who has a camera would like to activate their camera and wave and ask to speak in present to speak, please do so. I think I've got everyone on one screen. I'm not seeing anyway. Okay, anyone who is not on video but would like to unmute and call out your name if you would like to speak, please do so. Okay, that concludes present to speak. I don't have anything for good and welfare unless
I
anyone else.
move to adjourn.
Sounds great. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye or waving.
Aye.
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 All right, that seems unanimous.
Mike, once you
Direct-
stop the recording, can you just stay on with me for a second?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.